So Ash, we finally got the chance to play Yoshi's Crafted World, a game both of us have been really excited for basically ever since it was announced and we finally got some more information about it, because both of us really enjoyed Yoshi's Woolly World, and now that we've actually had a little bit of time to play the full version, we got a review copy in, I thought we'd sit down, talk, and give our thoughts so far about the game. Now I've had a chance to play a little bit farther than you, but I'd say we both have a good idea of what we think about the game so far. Now of course we're not going to be giving any final thoughts or anything like that. This is strictly a preview type thing, but so far, Ash, what have you thought of Yoshi's Crafted World?
You know, it's been an interesting experience. It's definitely different from what you might be expecting if you're coming straight from Woolly World. It's been a little up and down for me so far, but as I got to where I'm currently at in the game, I'm definitely going up on it. So I've definitely kind of been, not quite sure how I felt at different parts of my playtime, but getting to where I am now, I'm feeling a little bit better about it.
I'll be blunt. This game makes a terrible first impression.
Yeah.
It is an awful first impression. You start up the game, the music is not great. It honestly gave me a little bit of flashback to Yoshi's New Island. You play the first couple of levels, it's like, man, it feels like there's something missing. And then all of a sudden, once you get past the first set of levels, things start to click into place. And I think you're finally starting to reach that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I will say that there were times I was having, I was really enjoying myself before that point, but it definitely opens up in a whole new way, kind of once you pass the first few stages. And the further you get, at least up to where I am, the level designs really just get more and more interesting, and just the way that the levels are, forgive me, crafted, it's really impressive, and the craft-like visuals go a long way towards selling the world and how everything fits within each level.
Yeah, make no mistake, this game is gorgeous. It looks
yes.
so good. The way they play with the focus a lot of times, a lot of times you'll see something in the background, you'll aim towards it, and it'll actually, you'll see the screen focus towards that object. So it's sort of like this nice camera effect. There's some really, really cool stuff going on here, but the early designs of the levels, at least the early levels designs, are kind of basic and really boring, so you kind of just get this lull and you're just not into it. And I think the other problem I had is that I was going for 100% immediately, and that's a bad idea. Because this game has you replay levels so often. Did you encounter that at all? Did you take the time to 100% any of the levels?
Yeah, definitely. So I 100%ed a few of the levels on my first time through, but then of course it's only 100% at the time that you clear it, because then you get additional objectives that give you additional flowers after you go back to the map screen. So it is actually impossible to completely 100% a level your first time through it. So I got what I thought was everything for a few levels my first time through, and then I went back to a couple of levels I'd already played to try to truly 100% them. And yeah, I think it's better if you just don't worry get everything you can, but don't worry too much about 100%ing a level before you move on, because otherwise the pacing is going to be completely ruined for you. And I feel like you probably figured that out too.
Oh yeah, I think that's why I had such a poor first impression of the game, because I was going for 100%, because that's how I play Yoshi games. I try to get as much, try to find everything and go for it. And it's one of those things okay, you beat the level, now do the flip side. Again, that's kind of fun. That's to hunt down the Poochie Pups. I actually don't mind that, especially from a visual perspective, to see how all the things you went through the first time, seeing how they were all created. There's some real fun in those visuals, and rushing through the levels, trying to find the pups and continue on. It actually stays fresh. The problem is the souvenirs. And they have you hunt down these specific objects within the levels, and you think it's only going to be one per level. No, they have you go back again and again and again through these levels in the regular way. In the flip side, it's awful. I'll say it right. I'll say it outright. I hate this.
There's a little bit too much backtracking and repeat playthroughs required to get 100% in this game so far, and it kind of, in a weird way, reminds me of Runner 3. For those of you who saw my review of that, that game really made you backtrack through over a lot of covered ground over and over and over again, and that's definitely what this reminds me of.
I'm very curious because the big thing, much bigger than any previous Yoshi game in the past, the smiley flowers are a huge thing. Like, they're your currency to go forward. You need to have a certain amount in order to make it to the next set of levels, which is, fine and whatnot. I've never had an issue having enough to go forward, even after I stopped worrying about the souvenirs. But I do wonder if it's worth going for everything. And of course, I'm going to be checking that out for the full review. But it's one of those things like, are they going to make this worth my time? Is there something cool enough to actually do all this? And my guess is probably going to be no. But that's actually not a bad thing, because then you can just play the game normally and enjoy yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, I get the sense that there's not going to be, like, anything cool for getting all the costumes or finding all the crafts, but I do feel like maybe there's a chance that getting all the smiley flowers will unlock some special bonus area with a few bonus stages. So I do think that maybe if you're going to, of course we don't know yet, but it feels like if you're trying to see everything this game has to offer, smiley flowers are going to be what you want to focus on. The other stuff, maybe not.
Well, that's the thing. You need all that other stuff in order to get all the smiley flowers. You need all the red coins to get the smiley flowers.
Duh. Yeah, I forgot about that.
You need to get the souvenirs to get the smiley flowers. The smiley flowers are the core of everything.
Right.
So
yeah, I completely because there are additional objectives like the Poochie Pups you mentioned, where you go back through and you get a flower for completing that new objective. And I totally forgot that flowers are also locked behind finding the crafts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's a lot. Like, if you want to go for 100%, this might be just a bit of a grind. We'll see how it goes from there. But here's the thing. It felt so basic, and it felt like, oh boy, they're making us backtrack all this because there's not going to be a lot of levels. Boy, was I wrong, because once you get past the first boss, the game opens up in a way no Yoshi game has really ever done before, as far as I'm aware anyway, because you can, there's so many different paths to take and levels to take on, each with its own theming and whatnot, that you really don't get a sense that like there's any worlds. Like, there's not a world themed around this. It's only about 2 or 3 levels themed around one thing, and even then they can be completely different. The game does a really good job of changing things up as you go along.
It really does. I've noticed that like no 2 levels are the same. Like, they don't even feel close to alike. Even within the same overall area, every level feels completely distinct with its own gimmicks and its own backgrounds and crafts, and it really does feel very diverse as you're playing through the game. And then, as you said, for a while it feels very linear, of course, in the way the Yoshi games do. But then once you get to a certain point, as you said, it opens up and you actually get to choose, kind of almost like a Mega Man game a little bit, where you want to go next. Like, you have more than one option.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. They still have a way of keeping things more difficult as you go along because of the way it's structured. It still keeps that difficulty curve. And I've found myself really enjoying this way this is done. It makes it unique, makes it interesting. And again, it makes me so conflicted based on that first impression, because it's sticking in there and it's making me wonder, okay, if you play normally, you're good. But if once I have to go back and 100% all this stuff, how am I going to feel about this?
Yeah, I will say that is maybe the one area that I feel Crafted World outdoes Woolly World, is its difficulty curve. Woolly World, through most of it, was way too easy, I think, for a lot of people. And that's not to say that Crafted World is hard. It's not, but it does feel like things ramp up more like a normal platformer than they did in Woolly World. And of course, going for 100%, I do think is going to be, a fairly stiff challenge in this game. Not impossibly hard, but overall things feel a little more like the game expects a little more of you than Woolly World did.
Sometimes, but there's definitely ways that it sort of helps you along, because have you tried any of the costumes yet?
I have, and that is one thing that I feel makes it a still somewhat easy game even easier, which, yeah, they look cool, they're cute, but they let you take extra damage, and you can already take, a few hits. So I actually have found it more fun to play without the costumes, even though I do like to try each one on that I get just to see what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the costumes. It's super cute to see Yoshi in each of these outfits and what they reference, and there's fun little details, like when you have a train costume, the wheels actually move and whatnot.
Right.
It's little details like that that's really fun, but they allow you to take extra hits, which makes certain levels really easy. Now, granted, I only used them in the early levels, but they will protect you for later levels. So let's say you're taking a lot of damage, you can't get keeping the max amount of hearts in order to get that smiley flower. These are a perfect way to do that. You can take extra hits, and they refill each time you get to a checkpoint. So It's a way to really just keep yourself on. So it's great as a tool to help you along if you're having a difficulty with a spot. But if you're just playing normally, I'd actually recommend to keep the costumes off.
No, I completely agree. Because, and also, like, even though I do really like the costumes, I like trying them on, and then usually I just like to take them off, only because it's a Yoshi game. I like seeing Yoshi, like just Yoshi, when I'm playing. Like, I don't know, it just feels more right seeing regular Yoshi out there instead of wearing a weird box or carton or something, you know?
Yeah. It's not quite as elegant as the different colors that Yoshi had in Woolly World.
Right, exactly, which I really enjoyed those costumes more, because not only could you unlock them with the amiibo, but they were just so many different ones based on various characters, and I just felt like those were more fun to actually play with, like, in the actual game, than these costumes are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would easily just go from color to color to color. Like, I would not be a same color in any level.
Yeah, I think I just did random, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a good time, but that's what makes Crafted World so interesting, because I've never had a game where my opinions have changed so radically as I've played it.
Yeah, you know, I don't think mine have changed quite as radically as yours, but definitely as I've gotten closer to where you are, my thoughts have improved. And I was a little unsure about it at first, because I was having a good enough time, but man, and I know we kind of mentioned this, but the music is so disappointing. And it just, and that's one of the first impressions. Like, as you said, the first impression you get of the soundtrack is Yoshi's New Island. It feels like it's going to be like that, and thankfully it never becomes awful like that, but it's boring and it's forgettable, and it literally is like every stage is a different riff on the same main theme, and it has that kind of nursery rhyme babyish sound that New Island had. And Woolly World's soundtrack was so good, and so I think that maybe negatively colored my opinion starting off, because I put so much stock in the music. But then as I got further and I got really impressed by the level designs, and you know, I feel like the further you go, the better it gets almost. It's like you start and it's like not the best first impression, but then you keep playing and it's like, okay, maybe the music's still not great, and you know, there are other issues, but the levels are so well designed.
Yeah, the music issue might be the biggest one, just because there's a sound test option that you can take a look at. There's only 20 songs in the game.
Right. I noticed that, and it's like, what? Why? What happened?
I have no idea, because one of my favorite songs to this day is still the special stage theme for Woolly World. It's so good.
Yeah, I love that theme, and really that whole soundtrack was just so good. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know why there was a change in direction for the soundtrack, but fortunately, you know, the game's visuals do go a long way toward making up for it. It is, as we said, a gorgeous game, and I really do enjoy the new gameplay mechanic of shooting eggs into the background and foreground. Like, it really has changed the way that I played a Yoshi game, because normally I'll just be going along and be looking for things in the only 2D plane you're playing on, but sometimes I'll catch myself in Crafted World and be like, oh, wait, I gotta go back because I didn't check the background for this segment of the stage. And it's kind of cool, though. Like, I like looking for stuff in the background to hit.
Yeah, especially because there's every so often there's those timers where you hit them and you have a limited amount of time to do some sort of task in order to get a smiley flower. You fail, you're out. You don't get a second chance, and you don't see that too often with Yoshi, and it makes it kind of fun. I like that little bit of extra stress, that little bit of extra challenge. It really adds something to the game, I believe, and it just gets more and more interesting as you go along. A very interesting change, though, is to the boss fights, because there used to be levels involved with all the boss fights, and so you had to keep all the stuff that you gained, so you couldn't take any hits and anything like that. That's gone. It's just the boss now. And you can take hits. You don't have to worry about. You don't have to stress about doing a hitless run or anything like that. So it makes there's less stress involved with the bosses now if you want to go for that perfect run.
Right, because I remember there being a lot of stress involved for the Woolly World bosses if you were going for that perfect run. And yeah, no, they've completely changed the way bosses are handled. And I have to say, the ones I've faced so far, mechanically, they're just very standard boss fights, in my opinion. We've seen stuff like this before in other Nintendo games and other non-Nintendo games, but from a visual standpoint, I love the way these bosses look. I just had a smile on my face the whole time for both of the bosses I've faced so far, because they have so much personality, and just the art direction is so inspired.
Yeah, there's some really fun, subtle movements going on during the sequences where they're being created by camera.
Yeah.
There's some really good stuff there, and yeah, they're about what you'd expect, but there's some fun twist to them, you know. And there's some unique bosses too, because even Woolly World pulled from the same set of bosses we're very familiar with, and you'll see some repeats here in the in Crafted World as well. But hey, there's some new ones. I'll take that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. I guess that leads me to like kind of my overall thoughts at this point in the game, or at this point, which is, this is a game where you feel like you're constantly doing something different, and I think I like that about it. It's still very much a Yoshi game, and it's obviously a platformer, but kind of going to what you were saying about the little clouds you can shoot that open up like a little mini game in the stage that gets you a smiley flower if you complete it. There are a bunch of those throughout every stage. Like, individual stages are long, and I feel like every several seconds you're coming across something that just gives you a little challenge to do something other than just continue through the level. And I feel like the levels are very three-dimensional in that sense, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, totally. There's a level when you're on a train. There's a level where you're flying a plane. There's a level where you're running from a skeletal dinosaur. There's a level where you're in a dinosaur head and wrecking everything, so you got to be kind of careful. Like, there's so many changes from level to level that keeps things interesting. There was one level I had to take out a certain amount of Monty Moles before the end before you get to the end, in order to get all the smiley flowers. So it's an auto scroller, so you're constantly trying to kill as many Monty Moles as possible, and it's in the background, it's in the foreground, they're coming at you, they're coming above you, and it changes things up, and you're always on the move. It's a great way to add that challenge, which is why I also recommend to not have the costumes on all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a game that constantly expects you not just to look behind and in front of you like you may have become accustomed to, but also behind and really in front of you, as in closer to the TV screen. So it's really cool in that way, and I feel like for a lesser game might have fallen on its face trying to do the gimmicky, like the different gimmicks for every stage, and only excel at the core platforming. But the core gameplay in Crafted World is definitely really good in my opinion at this point, and it seems to be getting better. So yeah, we don't know for sure yet, but and it's been a little up and down, but I think right now we're both feeling pretty good about the game.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those cases of not sure at first, but the more I play, and the more I play normally, the better I feel. I'll have my review out, of course, when the game comes out, but just from this preview and playing a little bit so far, do not go for 100% right away. It kills the pacing. That is a death wish of like killing your enjoyment of this game. So
totally.
Yeah.
And if you consider yourself any sort of veteran at platformers, and especially Nintendo platformers, and especially Yoshi games, don't wear the costumes. Like, just try them on, see how cute they are, and then play without them, because it's going to be way too easy for you if you keep them on.
Use them if you're having trouble getting all the hearts through a level.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly. and go in expecting not so great music.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how we fall once the game, we're finished with the game and get more to see more and how it all comes together. But yeah, bit of a mixed reaction, but there's hope.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not feeling down on the game. Like, I at this point, I want to go and play more of it, which is a good sign. And you do too, presumably, and not just for the review. So I think, we're in a good place right now. We don't know where it's going to go because it's been a little mixed so far. But
that first hour is like, oh no, I'm in trouble.
Yeah,
I was having New Island flashbacks, and I was like, well, not making that mistake that I did with New Island where I was too kind to it. But no, this one actually is turning around.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just because Woolly World made such a fantastic first impression, and that first impression lasted through the whole game, whereas this one doesn't make that first impression, but it kind of things ramp up, and you get to that level of quality you might have been expecting as you play along.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But for now, I think that covers it for our Yoshi's Crafted World preview, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, and of course make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Yoshi and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye!